our Lord says, you are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. And they say light and salt do not exist for themselves. They exist for something outside of themselves. They have an effect on the world. Like salt doesn't exist for its own sake, but it has an effect when it's mixed with food or other things. So it is with light. Light illumines the world in order that we might see. Its purpose exists outside of itself. And maybe that relates to what Pope Francis called the ministry of encounter, that we exist in order to encounter the world. Like salt exists in order to encounter food. Light exists in order to encounter objects. And salt has maybe three properties, three uses. One is it's a preservative. Okay? It preserves food from going bad. Well, Christians, being the salt of the earth, preserve the world. Okay? The world naturally tends to go from bad to worse. But the presence of the salt, the presence of the church in the world, preserves the world from decay. Second purpose, if a city were conquered by an army, that army would knock down the walls of that city, the protection of that city, and destroy the property, and they would salt the fields, okay, and making them unable to produce food. Okay? So salt has a destructive property to it. Well, Christians are meant to build on the one hand and to fight on the other. Okay? Christianity is meant to destroy evil, to uproot evil from the world. A third purpose of salt is spice, to flavor food. Okay? And they say when we lose our saltiness, the world goes flat. Okay? Like there's that principle, as goes the church, so goes the world. Okay? When the church is strong and flourishes, the world is healthy. But when the church goes flat, the world loses altitude very quickly. When the church blends in with the world, the church loses its purpose. Okay? So if the church and the world blend in, that means the salt has lost its flavor. It's lost its sting, its power. It can preserve no one. It can destroy no evil. It can't make the world a better place. Let's see. There was a book a few years ago called The Dying of the Light. And it was about Christian colleges which had lost their way. About Princeton and Yale had originally been established as religious institutions or Christian institutions, and they had become secular. Okay? The dying of the light. And so it is today, even with Catholic colleges which no longer teach or stand for what the Catholic Church teaches. When Catholic colleges go secular, it means the salt has lost its flavor. They've lost their authenticity. Like we say, if the Catholic Church does not teach what the Catholic Church teaches, well, who's going to teach it? Okay? And that's the salt and the light that the world need. I remember reading once about a little story called The Confession of a Lapsed Catholic. And the man says he was trying very hard not to lapse. He struggled to understand some of the teachings of the Catholic Church, but he concludes by saying, I would rather be alienated from an institution that stands for something than belong to one that would accommodate itself to lazy, secular me. Okay? He'd rather have a church that is the salt of the earth and the light of the world than one that would accommodate itself, that one that would blend in with the world. Okay? So the church mission is to receive and to pass on the gold standard, not to compromise the truth, but to always reset the bar. We say, as Christians, we don't always live up to that standard, but we reset the bar. We know the standard, and we strive again. We get up again and try to live that standard. Like we say, salt has a bite to it. Faith has a conviction about it. Truth has a sting to it. Like there's a T-shirt that says, "I believe life is more than survival. I believe the heart is more than a muscle. I believe we can know right from wrong. I believe in the cross of Jesus Christ." What is it that you believe in? Okay. And kind of the contrast between the sacred and the secular, between the church and the world, that should be there. It brings a sharp contrast to the salt and the food, to the light and the darkness. Okay? And St. Augustine has a little commentary on this passage, the salt that has lost its flavor. He says, "It is not he who suffers persecution that is trodden underfoot by a man, but it is he who through fear of persecution falls away, who is trodden underfoot." Okay? It's not the martyrs who were trampled on, who were trodden underfoot. It's those who compromise the truth for the sake of expediency. Okay? Politicians who care more about public opinion than what's true. Okay? So again, being the salt of the earth doesn't mean we're better than other people. It means that we're striving to become a better version of ourselves. It means we've been given the gift of knowing the standard to which we are called. And even though we fall short, we again try and live it out. We reset the bar. We don't lower the bar. The bar we strive to remain faithful to is the standard God has set. And we call that truth. So we don't go about like compromising the truth, diluting the salt. We remain strong. In the South, they say, no one wants to buy watered-down whiskey, okay? And no one is going to die for watered-down truth. It doesn't appeal to people. Diluted religion, diluted Catholicism does not appeal to people. So when you and I find the world to be bland, dark, and flat, like we say, we're not there to think ourselves better than it, but as Pope Francis says, we must be that ministry of encounter. Pour on the salt, turn on the light.